Hello, everyone. Have you ever poured your heart into a family only to realize they were slowly pushing you out of their lives? For Eleanor Thompson, that moment came when her beloved granddaughter, the girl she'd rocked to sleep and supported through every milestone, dismissed her from a cherished family moment with a single, cutting word. Vibe. It was a betrayal that shattered her, but it was also the spark that set her free. Join me on Eleanor's extraordinary journey from invisibility to empowerment, as she learns that sometimes the people you love most teach you how to live without them. If this story moves you, please leave a comment telling me where you're watching from, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for more real-life stories that matter. They say family is forever, unconditional, enduring, a bond that holds through time. I believed that. I lived it. For decades, I poured my heart into my daughter, my grandchildren, my home. My name is Eleanor Thompson. I'm 76 years old, and until recently, I thought I'd done everything right. This is the story of how I stopped being a shadow in my own family and started living for myself. I spent 35 years as a clerk at the public library in Bloomington, Indiana, organizing books, helping children find stories, and keeping the world in order, one index card at a time. I raised my daughter, Linda, alone after my husband, Robert, passed away 15 years ago from a heart attack. I never remarried, never wanted to. My family was my purpose, especially after Linda's divorce left her with 2 kids, Emily and Nathan, and a mortgage she couldn't manage. I stepped in without being asked. I cooked dinners, drove the kids to soccer practice, paid for school supplies when money was tight. I was the grandmother who showed up, the mother who never said no, the woman who kept the family together without expecting a thank you. Emily, my oldest granddaughter, was my light. When she was little, she'd climb onto my lap, her small hands tugging at my silver braid, begging for stories about princesses and dragons. "You're my queen, Grandma," she'd say, her eyes bright. I thought we'd always have that bond. So when she announced her engagement to a kind young man named Tyler, my heart swelled. Weddings are expensive, and I live on a modest pension and Social Security. But I wanted to help. I offered to pay for the photography and videography package, $4,500, a significant chunk of my savings. I didn't want Emily stressing about capturing her big day. I signed the contract, paid with my credit card, and tucked the receipts into a drawer. She never asked how much it cost. No one did. That should have been my first clue. But love blinds you to the cracks in the people you hold closest. The rehearsal dinner was held at a charming vineyard just outside town. All exposed beams and mason jar centerpieces, the kind of place that feels like it was designed for Instagram. The air was warm, filled with laughter and the clink of glasses. I stood near the edge of the crowd, watching Emily glide through the room in a cream dress, her smile radiant. I felt a quiet pride, even if I didn't quite fit among the younger guests snapping selfies under Edison bulb chandeliers. Emily spotted me and waved, her smile tight but polite. She walked over, her phone in one hand, Tyler's arm in the other. "Hey, Grandma," she said, her voice soft but hurried. "Can we talk for a second? Over here?" I followed her to a quieter corner near a stack of wooden crates, where the videographer was adjusting his camera. Then she said it. "You get it, right? The video's got this modern, clean aesthetic. I think it'd be better if you're not in it, or at least not much. It's not personal, it's just the vibe." The word vibe landed like a slap. I searched her eyes for hesitation, for some sign she didn't mean it, but all I saw was impatience, as if my presence was a wrinkle in her perfect plan. I forced a smile, the kind women my age learn to wear when the world expects us to stay quiet. "Of course, sweetheart," I said. "I understand." She hugged me quickly, already turning back to her friends, and I stood there, my hands trembling, pretending to admire a floral arrangement. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the receipts spread out like evidence of my foolishness. The contract was clear. I could cancel with a partial refund, since the service hadn't been performed. I called the videography company, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. The manager was kind, professional. "You're within your rights, Mrs. Thompson," she said. I hung up and stared at the walls of my small home. The framed photos of Emily's school plays, the quilt I'd sewn for Linda's 40th birthday, the rocking chair where I'd read to Nathan. It all felt like a stage set for someone else's life, not mine. The next morning, I sent the cancellation email. I didn't tell Linda, Emily, or even my neighbor, Mrs. Carter, who always dropped off zucchini bread at Christmas. If I was to be invisible in their story, then I'd make sure there was no story at all. I hoped I was wrong about them, that they'd notice, that they'd care. But deep down, I knew what was coming. Sleep didn't come easily after the rehearsal dinner. I lay awake, listening to the hum of my ancient refrigerator and the creak of the floorboards in my 1960s bungalow. My heart wasn't just heavy, it was humiliated. I kept replaying Emily's words, her casual dismissal, and wondering how I'd become someone who didn't fit. By morning, I tried to convince myself it was a misunderstanding, a moment of wedding stress, but the knot in my stomach told a different story. I called Linda, needing to know I wasn't imagining the slight. She answered on the fourth ring, her voice bright but distracted. "Hey, Mom, everything okay?" I hesitated, then said, "Can we talk about last night?" Emily asked me to stay out of the wedding video because I didn't match the vibe. A long pause, then a sigh. "Oh, Mom, don't make a big deal out of it. It's just the aesthetic she's going for. You know how kids are with their social media. She didn't mean it like that." I swallowed hard. "You didn't say anything to her. You didn't defend me." Linda laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound. "It's her wedding, Mom. Let's not make it about you." The words cut deeper than Emily's. It wasn't just a moment, it was a pattern. I was an accessory, useful when quiet, invisible when inconvenient. "Thanks for clearing that up," I said, hanging up before my voice broke. I stood in my kitchen, staring at my reflection in the glass door of the microwave. How had I gone from the woman who worked overtime to pay for Linda's college textbooks to someone who didn't belong in her granddaughter's wedding video? I'd spent years saying yes, smoothing over conflicts, filling gaps with casseroles and cash. And now, I was ashamed, not just of their dismissal, but of how I'd let it happen, how I'd taught them I'd always be there, no matter what. I went through the motions that day, ironing napkins, sorting mail, refilling my weekly pill organizer. But Emily's face kept flashing in my mind, her polite, practiced smile as she told me I didn't fit. That evening, I pulled out the videography contract again, reading every line like it was a legal brief. I called the company a second time, speaking to the owner, a man named Greg. "I understand, Mrs. Thompson," he said gently. "We'll process the cancellation." The confirmation email arrived minutes later. A partial refund of $3,800 would hit my account in 5 to 7 days. I sat in the quiet, the weight of my decision settling in. It wasn't about hurting them. It was about refusing to pay for my own erasure. I wasn't angry. I was awake. The morning of the wedding was crisp and golden. the kind of Indiana autumn day that makes you believe in new beginnings. I wore a lavender dress Emily had once called elegant, paired with the pearl necklace Robert gave me on our 25th anniversary. I brushed my hair, applied a touch of blush, and looked in the mirror. I was still Eleanor, still me. At the venue, a historic chapel with stained glass windows, I hugged distant relatives, smiled at Linda's friends, and took a seat in the back row. The ceremony was beautiful. Emily glowed, Tyler's vows were heartfelt, and petals fluttered as they walked down the aisle. No one mentioned the missing cameras. The videographer and photographer were absent, as I'd ensured, but the guests didn't seem to notice, too caught up in the moment. I sat quietly, a ghost in their perfect scene, knowing I'd removed the evidence of my presence. But I was there. I saw it all. After the reception, I drove home alone, the radio off. The silence heavy, but not oppressive. I made tea, sat in my armchair, and let the day settle. I'd done what I needed to do, but the ache lingered, not just for what happened, but for what I'd let myself become. The next morning, my phone rang at 8:45 a.m. It was Emily, her voice sharp and trembling. "Grandma, what did you do?" My chest tightened, but I kept my tone even. "Good morning, Emily." "Don't play dumb," she snapped. "Where were the cameras? Why is there no video, no professional photos from my wedding?" "I canceled the contract," I said calmly. "I paid for it. I had the right." Her voice broke. "You what? Why would you do that?" I took a breath. "You told me I didn't belong in the video, Emily. You said I ruined the vibe. I figured I shouldn't ruin your day." Silence stretched between us, thick and searing. "You destroyed everything," she whispered. "This was the most important day of my life, and you took it away." I closed my eyes. "You told me I didn't belong in it." "You're so selfish," she hissed, and the line went dead. By noon, Linda called, her voice like ice. "What were you thinking, Mom? Do you know how upset Emily is?" I was respecting her wishes. I said, "She didn't want me in the video, so I made sure I wasn't." Linda scoffed. "You did this to punish her. Admit it." My throat tightened. "I did it because I'm tired of being invisible. I've paid your rent, bought groceries, covered Nathan's braces, Emily's dance lessons, your car repairs. I paid for this wedding package. Don't tell me I'm selfish." There was a stunned pause. "You're unbelievable," she said, and hung up. By evening, Emily had blocked me on social media. Linda stopped answering my texts. Nathan and my younger granddaughter, Olivia, ignored my weekly messages. I was radioactive, a problem, not a person. I tried not to cry, but the tears came anyway, not just for the hurt, but for the years I'd spent believing I was loved, that we were a family. It was built on my silence, my sacrifices, my willingness to fade so they could shine. It had never been enough. The days that followed were oppressively quiet. No calls, no visits, not even a wave from the neighbors who usually stopped by with garden tomatoes. Maybe word had spread. Maybe they sensed the fracture. But in that silence, something shifted. I stopped asking what I'd done wrong and started asking what they had done, or rather, what they'd never done. Seen me, valued me, respected me. I made a decision, not out of anger, but clarity. I opened my banking app and reviewed the automatic transfers I'd set up over the years. $700 a month to Linda for rent, $100 for Emily's phone bill, $250 for Nathan's college fund. I'd called it help, but it was survival, a way to secure my place in a family that only noticed me when I gave. I canceled them all, one by one, without explanation. I closed the shared family phone plan, ended the recurring grocery gift cards, stopped the birthday deposits. It wasn't revenge. It was release. 3 days later, Linda texted, "Did you forget the rent payment this month?" I replied, "No." Her response was immediate. "Seriously? You're doing this over a wedding?" I didn't answer. She texted again. "You're hurting everyone, not just Emily. This is low." I stayed silent. They didn't see my pain. They saw my boundaries as betrayal. They'd built their lives on my endless giving. And now that I'd stopped, I was the villain. I ran into Mrs. Carter at the grocery store a week later. "Heard about Emily's wedding," she said, her voice cautious. "Beautiful, but no video? What happened?" I smiled tightly. They decided against it. She nodded, sensing the unspoken, and changed the subject. That night, I sat in my living room, the silence no longer heavy, but honest. I wasn't smoothing cracks anymore. I was letting them show. The quiet gave me space to breathe, to think, to be. I started small, walking to the Bloomington Public Library where I'd worked for decades. The smell of old books and the hum of fluorescent lights felt like home. I signed up for a senior book club on Tuesdays and a pottery class on Thursdays. The pottery teacher, Diane, was in her 60s, with a warm laugh and clay-stained aprons. "You've got a knack for this, Eleanor," she said after my first session. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not as a grandmother or mother, but as me. I stopped sending my Sunday texts to the grandkids. For years, I'd messaged Emily, Nathan, and Olivia every week. A memory, a recipe, a photo of my garden. They rarely replied, but I'd kept it up, hoping it mattered. Now, I set my phone down and let the silence speak. Not one of them reached out first. A month after the wedding, I heard whispers at the library. Emily had hired a new photographer for a styled shoot to recreate her wedding for social media. I checked her Instagram, public again, and saw the images. Emily in her dress, posed in a sunflower field, Tyler in a crisp suit, the light golden. The caption read, "Sometimes you get a second chance to make it perfect." The comments gushed, "So dreamy! Wedding goals!" But I saw what was missing. Joy. The photos were staged, the smiles forced. There was no grandmother holding her hand, no mother wiping tears, no real family, just a performance. I didn't feel angry. I felt free. Emily hadn't excluded me because I didn't fit her vibe. She'd excluded me because I was too real, a reminder that family isn't a filter. She wanted a fantasy, and I'd let her have it. The family noticed my absence, but not in the way I'd once hoped. Linda's landlord emailed me by mistake, a final notice about overdue rent. Nathan called, not to chat, but to say his college payment had bounced. Olivia texted, asking for textbook money. Each time, I redirected them to Linda or stayed silent. Linda's email came next, blunt and accusing. "You've made your point, Mom. Everything's falling apart." Happy now? I didn't reply. Their world was crumbling, not because I'd stopped loving them, but because I'd stopped carrying it. I saw Linda at the local diner one morning, her face tired, her phone untouched on the table. Our eyes met through the window. She didn't wave, and neither did I. It was the most honest moment we'd ever shared. She wasn't angry because I'd hurt her. She was angry because I'd stopped enabling her. Then came a text from Olivia, softer than the others. "Grandma, I miss you. I don't know what's going on, but I'd love to see you. Is that okay?" I didn't respond immediately, not out of spite but caution. I needed to know she saw me, not just the grandmother who paid for things. I waited, and the waiting didn't hurt. It healed. 2 months after the wedding, a cream-colored envelope arrived, embossed with gold lettering. "Family brunch, Saturday, 11 a.m. Let's reconnect. We miss you. No names, no apology, just a polished invitation, like a corporate event. I pictured the scene. Linda orchestrating a photo op, Emily smiling for the camera, a caption about forgiveness and family. But they didn't want reconciliation. They wanted to restore the image I'd disrupted. I called Linda the night before the brunch. She answered, her voice wary. "I got your invitation," I said. "I'm not coming." A sharp inhale. "Mom, can we just—" "No," I interrupted, firm but calm. "You don't miss me. You miss the version of me who never said no, who paid for everything, who stayed quiet. That's not me anymore." Silence. "You're choosing to be alone," she said finally. "No," I replied. "I'm choosing to be free." I hung up, my hands steady. The next day, I attended my first art exhibition at the library. Diane had encouraged me to submit my pottery, a collection of vases and bowls, each imperfect but alive with color. The community room was filled with locals, their voices warm and curious. A woman in her 80s touched my arm, her eyes on a vase with a cracked rim. "This feels like a life," she said. "Broken, but beautiful." I nodded, my throat tight. "Exactly." A young boy, maybe 10, pointed at a bowl painted with swirling blues. "Did you make that?" he asked. I smiled. "I did." "It's cool," he said, and ran off. In that moment, I felt whole, not because I was needed, but because I was seen. Weeks later, I saw Linda again, outside the post office. She stood by her car, her posture weary. I crossed the street, and she looked up, startled. "You're really doing this," she said, her voice soft. "Living without us." I met her eyes. "I'm living for myself." I didn't know what that felt like until I stopped being everyone's safety net. She blinked, tears welling. "I didn't mean to push you away. I thought I was protecting Emily, giving her the perfect day." I stepped closer. "You don't have to protect everyone. Sometimes you have to protect what's yours, your truth, your heart." She nodded, her lips trembling. "I'll try," she whispered. I smiled faintly. "That's all you can do." I walked away, not with anger, but with peace. I didn't need their apologies or their approval. I had my mornings, my pottery, my book club, my garden. I had the library, where I'd started volunteering again, reading to children on Saturdays. I had a life, not the one I'd planned, but the one I'd chosen. One evening, I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook, writing a list. Things I want for myself. Peace in the morning light, a laugh that doesn't hide pain, a name spoken with respect, not obligation. The freedom to be Eleanor, not just Grandma. Not one item had a price tag, not one depended on anyone else. It was mine, and it was enough. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and please share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear where you're watching from and what this story meant to you. Your voice matters, and I can't wait to connect with you all.